My name is Margaret. The day that letter arrived was the day my past finally cornered me. It wasn't merely a wedding invitation, it was a ghost, a whisper of every time my father had introduced me as just a security guard, his voice laced with that familiar, cutting disappointment. As I held the cream-coloured card, its gold embossing glinting like a taunt, I knew I couldn't outrun this confrontation any longer. If you've ever lived in the shadow of someone else's expectations, if you've ever felt invisible in their eyes, you'll understand why I'm asking you to subscribe. This is the story of how life sometimes forces people to see us, not as they wish, but as we truly are. My father, Richard Williams, had constructed his life like a fortress, each brick laid with status, each mortar line filled with money. A senior investment banker in New York, he measured worth in gleaming corner offices, in charity galas, in the polished laughter of acquaintances who traded stock tips like gossip. To the world, his life sparkled. But inside our family, it was a different story, colder, sharper. My mother, Audrey, a kindergarten teacher, with a heart too warm for his ambition, left him when I was 12. She'd grown weary of being little more than a prop in his grand design. After that, my weekdays were spent in her modest apartment, eating peanut butter sandwiches and losing myself in second-hand books, while weekends unfolded in my father's penthouse, its windows framing Central Park like a gilded cage. I learned early how to navigate two worlds, how to sit silently in one, how to perform in the other. By 17, my father had my future plotted like a corporate merger, Ivy League law, a desk at one of his friends' firms. When I told him I was enlisting in the army, he looked at me as if I'd slapped him. "The military?" he sneered, dabbing his mouth with a linen napkin. "People like us don't enlist. If they serve at all, they become officers." I went anyway. The army taught me discipline, leadership, the kind of courage that comes from staring down threats far worse than a parent's disapproval. When I returned, I used the GI Bill to study criminal justice, working nights as a campus security officer. By 29, I'd climbed the ranks at Meridian Protection Services, one of the most respected private security firms in the country. My specialty? Threat assessment. I'd just overseen security for an international diplomatic conference, and my supervisor had nominated me for an award. None of it mattered to my father. To him, I was still just a security guard. So when that ostentatious embossed invitation arrived, I almost threw it away. But my friend Alicia stopped me. "Prove him wrong," she said, helping me pick out a navy dress, something strong, something dignified. The truth was, I wanted it too, though I hated admitting it. I wanted him to see me, not the daughter he'd imagined, but the woman I'd become. The rehearsal dinner was exactly the spectacle I dreaded. Crystal centerpieces, ocean views, seating charts designed to reinforce hierarchies. When my father introduced me to an older couple, his tone was the same dismissive drawl as always. "This is my daughter Samantha. She's a security guard. Not a senior specialist, not an army veteran, not the professional trusted to protect diplomats, just a guard." I smiled through it, even as I heard the whispers. With Richard's connections, she could have been anything. By dessert, I was ready to bolt. Alicia texted me, "His opinion doesn't define you." But each careless introduction hollowed me out a little more. I stayed, maybe out of pride, maybe out of some stubborn hope that tomorrow would be different. The next afternoon, beneath a sky so impossibly blue it felt like a stage set, I noticed the first flaw in the facade. A catering worker who didn't belong. His jacket hung loose, his movements too precise, his gaze scanning the room not like a server, but like a hunter. Then I saw two more. Following them down a service corridor, I caught fragments of their plan. 2 million in jewelry. More coming through the east entrance. The ice in my veins told me everything I needed to know. This was a coordinated armed robbery. I alerted the police and the resort's head of security, Jenkins. But time was against us. Officers were 20 minutes out. The ceremony had already begun, and the suspects weren't waiting. They were positioning themselves, weapons hidden beneath jackets, eyes sharp with intent. I had seconds to decide. Sound the alarm and risk panic, or act. When the first robber fired his gun into the air, demanding valuables, chaos erupted. My father's new wife clung to his arm as a man shoved a pistol in their faces. That's when instinct took over. I moved fast, disarming the leader with a strike honed by years of training, using his own momentum against him. Gunfire followed. A searing pain tore across my arm. But I didn't stop. I shielded guests, directed security, confronted a man holding a hostage in the kitchen. By the time it was over, 7 suspects were in handcuffs, and my father was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Yet, as the paramedic stitched my wound, all I could say was, "It's just part of the job, even if it is just being a security guard." The word stung him. I saw it in the way his face twisted. What I didn't know then was that by morning, the news would broadcast my name, my photo, footage of me taking down armed men. The line between just a guard and who I really was would blur forever. The hotel room was too bright the next day, the silence thick enough to hear my own heartbeat. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts from Alicia, a voicemail from my mother, pride and worry tangled in her voice. When I turned on the TV, I barely recognized the woman on the screen. The newscaster called her a security expert. A grainy clip showed a woman in a navy dress moving with purpose. It took me a moment to realize it was me. Downstairs, brunch had been relocated to a smaller room, as if shrinking the space could diminish what had happened. Guests clustered in uneasy groups, pushing food around their plates. Eleanor, my father's fiancée, crossed the room faster than her stilettos should have allowed. "How's your arm?" she asked, her eyes flicking to the bandage beneath my jacket. "It'll heal," I said. The detectives wanted a follow-up. She swallowed hard. "Thank you," she added, and this time the words didn't sound rehearsed. I drifted toward the coffee, letting the heat of the cup ground me. Conversations hushed as I passed. Near the window, my father held court, his voice carrying. I caught the tail end of his sentence. Always knew she had potential. The word settled like a stone in my chest. Potential. As if the last decade had been nothing but a preamble. A staffer touched my elbow. "The detectives are ready for you, ma'am." I followed her, grateful for the escape. The interview was thorough, clinical. They walked me through the timeline, the corridor, the storage room door. I described faces, shoes, the rhythm of their scans. "All 7 are in custody," the lead detective said. "You'll probably be asked to testify." "I'm not looking for a medal," I replied. "Doesn't mean you didn't earn one," he said. Back at brunch, the TV volume crept up. Security footage played, my body moving with precision, the leader's weapon slipping from his grip, a hostage's face shifting from terror to relief. The room fell silent. Someone gasped. Across the table, my father's champagne flute tipped, shattering against the floor. For once, he didn't try to smooth over the moment with a joke. He looked at the screen, then at me, and in that shift, something in his face fractured. The applause started hesitant, then swelled. I didn't want it. I didn't know what to do with it. People stood, forming a circle without meaning to. questions rising like birds taking flight. Is it true you're a veteran? Didn't Meridian handle that gubernatorial event? How did you know? Pattern recognition, I said. You train your eyes, then you trust them. I gave them nothing more. The more they tried to turn me into a story, the more I just wanted to be a person. The hero of the hour, my father said, his arm awkward across my back. Even he heard the emptiness in it. Dad, I said quietly, I have a train to catch. Nonsense, he blustered. People want to hear about... He stopped, corrected himself. About your work. A manager approached, murmuring about reporters outside. I shook my head. No statements. When she left, my father looked lost. You don't want the publicity? This could be... My career doesn't need a camera, I cut in. It needs competence. That's the point. He faltered, as if someone had taken away a tool he'd always relied on. Can we talk? He asked. Privately. We found a quiet alcove by the water. On the TV behind him, a security analyst dissected my every move. My father kept glancing at the screen, then back at me. I didn't understand what you do, he admitted. You didn't ask, I replied. He flinched. I thought you were working doors at clubs or malls. I thought you were squandering your advantages. The rest died on his lips. And if I had been, I asked, would that have made it okay to introduce me as a cautionary tale? He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they looked older. You're right, he said. I've been dismissive. I've been cruel. The word tasted bitter in his mouth. I don't get to erase that. We were interrupted by the TV, a clip of my boss praising my training, my standards, my team. The room had turned into a theatre by accident. I should go, I said. Please. He reached for me, then pulled back at the sight of my bandage. Just later this afternoon, somewhere quiet. I hesitated, then nodded. Text me. In the hallway, my phone buzzed. Martin from Meridian. You all right? Stitched and sore, I replied. Good. We're issuing a statement, and the CEO wants to see you. There's a promotion on the table. I don't want to be a mascot, I said. You won't be, he promised. You'll build something. Late afternoon, the sky paled, the ocean turning to hammered glass. My father had already ordered 2 highballs, condensation beading on the coasters. He pushed one toward me. Club soda with lime, he said. I remember you don't drink when you're on. I took a sip, letting the tartness cut through the exhaustion. We sat in silence until he spoke. I watched the footage again. Then I watched an expert break it down. How you read the room, how you positioned yourself, how you used your body as both shield and weapon. His hands opened, as if releasing something. It was like hearing about a stranger, except it wasn't. It was you. That's the problem, I said. I've been right here all along. He nodded slowly. I wanted a version of you that fit the life I understood. Prestige, partnerships, champagne toasts. He grimaced. I told myself it was about giving you options. Really, it was about control. It was also about respect, I said. Or the lack of it. He took a sip, bracing himself. When that man had a gun to my head, he said, his voice steady. The only thing I could think was that I'd spent years measuring the wrong things. He looked out at the water, then back at me. You've built a life on purpose, on competence, on service. That's a kind of success I never learned to recognize. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind that lets words settle. I can't rewrite the past, he said. But I can say I'm sorry, and I can ask if you'll let me try to know you as you are, not as I insisted you be. I breathed in the lime-scented air. That starts with questions, I said, not speeches. He almost smiled. Then my first question, what do you love most about your work? I told him about threat patterns, about the quiet satisfaction of a plan executed flawlessly, about the hum of a room, the unseen currents, the way training teaches your mind to listen. I talked about my team, how we watch each other's blind spots. He listened, really listened. No interruptions, no corrections. When I finished, he drew a breath. I've been telling a story about you for years, he said. Yesterday, I finally heard yours. We didn't hug. We didn't tidy the past into a neat reconciliation. We sat there, two stubborn people in a bar bathed in winter light, and let the possibility of a different future take its first uncertain shape. As we stood to leave, he glanced at my bandage. You were shot, he said, as if just realizing it. You were shot protecting people who barely knew your name. It was a graze, I said. He shook his head. You and your mother, he murmured, always minimizing what you survive. In the elevator, my phone buzzed. Alicia. You okay? Do I need to come get you? I smiled. I'm all right, I typed. I'll call you from the train. I have a lot to tell you. Stepping into the lobby, I caught my reflection in the dark glass of the doors. Hair pulled back, jacket sitting oddly over the bandage, eyes tired but not defeated. Outside, the air tasted clean, like the calm after a storm. For the first time in a long time, I felt the difference between being seen and being watched. In the weeks that followed, life shifted in ways I hadn't expected. My firm promoted me to lead a new division. The police awarded me a medal. And for the first time in years, my father began showing up, not with critiques, but with curiosity. He asked about my work. He even attended a training demonstration I ran. It wasn't instant redemption, but little by little, the distance between us shrank, replaced by something real. I knew the scars, visible and invisible, would remain. But I finally understood. My worth had never depended on his recognition. It had always been mine, earned through the integrity of the life I'd chosen to live.